Hello Summoners and welcome back to another ProGuides video. My name is Nathan Ng and today we'll be talking about the 10 most dangerous champions that you need to be banning on patch 11.13. It's always a tall order to carry feeding teammates, but the champions in this video make it feel completely impossible to win when they get out of control on the enemy team. We'll start things off with top lane Nasus. It's been a pretty strong opinion from some high elo players that top lane has been disgustingly overpowered, and I have to say I kind of agree with them. Before you jump on that statement and start yelling in the comments, let me explain. Of course, jungle has the most impact early game, which can completely decide which lanes win. And of course, roaming supports and mid laners can affect what junglers get to do that. But what I mean by the statement is that when a top laner is ahead into the mid game, they can completely take over the game if you don't have the exact tools to shut them down. And when he's in the meta, no champion is a better example than Nasus. He's already made our list a few times this season as a pretty strong A tier pick, but being so niche has kept him from breaking into the S tier. If you got a head on him, he was strong, but with how many lane bullies have been meta, you couldn't really rely on that all the time. But with the Divine Center buffs on 11.11, the addition of Anathema's Chains and Hold Breaker, two items that fit very well with his playstyle, and the nerf to many of the other tougher lane bullies via Stridebreaker removing its dash, Nasus is shooting up to dangerous territory. We actually miss him in our top 15 champs prediction list, but now we think that he may be one of the strongest champions in the game. Of course, his early game will be the same, but Nasus' early game has never been that bad to begin with. He doesn't necessarily have the hard priority in lane, and you definitely don't want to be fighting the early skirmishes, but he does have sustain to not be pushed out of lane as long as he does manage the wave to be on his side. And once he just finishes a few components like Sheen and Glacial Shroud, he can actually fight most AD bruisers as long as he has his ultimate up, even before he has a crazy number of stacks. Then, once he reaches the mid to late game, pick up a few items, there's basically nothing that can stop him. The damage reduction from Anathema's Chains and the beefiness that he gets from Hullbreaker leave him basically untouchable, and he'll knock down towers and eventually your entire base in no time at all. In pro play, shutting down pure split pushing champions is much more doable, but your solo queue teammates aren't really likely to be having that type of coordination. So trust me, you want to ban this one out. Another top lane ban this patch is Riven. She's been one of our OP/borderline OP picks for quite a while now, and the small nerf that she's getting this patch won't really be changing that, especially since a lot of her tougher matchups are also being hit by the Stridebreaker change. The issue with Riven is that when she's played well enough, there's basically no way to shut her down. Her kit just gives her everything that she needs to outplay whatever you can throw at her, so playing the early game lane bullies isn't really worth it. At the same time, there are few scaling champions in the top lane that have much more of an impact than her. You could argue that somebody like Malphite is a good answer since he stacks armor and can at least have a massive impact in teamfights with his ultimate, but even then, it's kind of iffy. Malphite's ult is really impactful, but there's a lot of downtime between your ults where Riven can go ahead and just wreak havoc on the map. She'll also be much more useful in most 2v2s or 3v3 skirmishes. This video is all about champions that need to be banned, but given that your team only has 5 bans and you're only in control of one, you obviously can't ban them all. For those times when you do have to play against one of these obnoxiously OP champions, it's not like they're 100% win rate, it's just that they're really hard or frustrating to deal with. But we can help you with that. Our courses and coaches can teach you everything that you need to know to help you win even the hardest of games. If you want to access all of these resources to put you ahead of everybody else, head over to ProGuides.com and pick up your sub today. Just remember that we're still running a sick deal. Just use the discount code RANKUP2021 for 20% off yours today. So let's get back on topic, shall we? Next up, we do have some jungle bans for you. With the jungle being such an early game meta at the moment, the champions in the meta have a lot of influence on how the game goes. So, with that being said, we're going to give you guys 4 bans in the jungle instead of the normal 2 per role that we're used to doing. The first one of those champions is Lee Sin. He's a top tier duelist, able to fight for Scuttle in almost all matchups, and is easily able to kill the enemy jungle on the side of the map if he goes for some aggressive invades. But just dueling isn't enough to make him a good jungler. His early ganks are really strong, and once he has his ultimate, they're basically guaranteed kills on even slightly overextended laners. And if the game isn't able to be closed out soon enough, he actually has pretty good scaling for such a strong early game champion. You generally don't see Glass Cannon Lee Sin these days, but he can still make the game winning kicks on the enemy ADC. Or you can just swap gears to provide some extra peel, using his kick to knock back divers to square one to keep the carries alive. Since Lee Sin takes quite a bit of mechanics, this one is more so targeted at the higher elos. Maybe Plat Plus, and definitely in Diamond Plus, he should be banned. I've seen some people in the lower elos though be pretty crazy with their mechanics, so don't let me stop you. Our next pick is Fiddle, and unlike Lee Sin, he's just obscenely broken in all elos. No matter what rank you are, this is a champion that you really don't want to see on the enemy team. His ultimate is devastating and they can dictate where the fight goes. There's just not much counterplay to an AoE fear on your entire team that leads to an ace. You can make the argument that Fiddlesticks can only do that from the Fog of War, so all you need is to spam wards, but there are 2 flaws with that. One, it requires you to actually be ahead and have vision control. If your team isn't massively ahead, you can't really guarantee that you can have wards everywhere. The other thing is that even if you really are ahead, Fiddle's passive has a really low cooldown, and he can easily clear out plenty of wards. Then, as your team tries to set up a siege, a single good Fiddle ult is all it takes to crumble whatever lead you have. The worst part about this all is that you can't even really shut him down early. Fiddle may not have really good ganking pressure, but if you do try to bring a fight to him, he's going to be able to drain through your damage and kill you. There are several champions that can win 1v1s against him, like Shin, who has the damage and CC to kill him, but even in those worst matchups, Fiddle can just fare and run away. So with his god tier team fighting, there's not really much of a way to shut him down. He's just way too consistent of a pick to have him not banned out. The next jungle that we're going to be talking about is a clown that pretty much ruins your life. And I'm not talking about my ex. Riot put out some extremely lazy nerfs that basically just put a tiny dent on AP Shaco. AP Shaco is still plenty alive and well, and AD Shaco was completely untouched. He has the quickest level 3 clear of any jungler and is easily able to gank any laner that overextends just even a little bit. And once Shaco gets rolling, that snowball never stops. His ability to poof over any wall means repeat ganks after repeat ganks, which means more kills. And that tilt alone will cause almost anybody to give up. On top of that, whether it's AD or AP, Shaco's boxes can be a massive disruption to any diver. You may think it looks like you have a free shot onto any vulnerable ADC, but it's a real buzzkill when you just flash right into a Shaco box, get feared, and end up looking like a clown. And while other assassins fall off hard in 5v5 teamfights, since they kinda struggle to actually make it into the enemy backline, AD Shaco doesn't really have that issue. Once he's fed enough, he can just poof over any wall and then jump into the backline, one-shot the ADC before they can even react, and then use the Duskblade stealth in conjunction with his ultimate to make an escape. TLDR, Shaco is able to consistently get a lead, and once he has it, there's really no stopping him. Our fourth jungler for this patch isn't a must ban as our other picks because she isn't that OP in the other stages of the game, but still, Kindred is something to look out for. And that's thanks to her being a carry. Plenty of other hyper carries exist in the jungle, and while they can all carry when fed, Kindred is the one that can most consistently actually reach that hyper carry status. Her mobility and solid early game actually makes her a pretty decent duelist, and she can actually go toe-to-toe with quite a few of the other meta champions in the role as long as they aren't getting the jump on her from a bush. Again, Kindred isn't quite as egregious as the other picks, she can be shut down quite early, and if you keep her from getting stacks, it's actually pretty hard for her to teamfight. But a really smart Kindred with really smart pathing can always get a way back into the game, and once they start getting those range increases, it gets harder and harder to keep her down in fights. Now for our next high priority ban, we have one for the mid lane, Katarina. When I'm playing mid lane, she is always my go-to ban. And even when I'm not playing mid, if I see a single Katarina, she's the only champion that I ban out for the rest of the day. She just always seems to find her way into the game no matter what. She can be super tricky to lane against, and with just a single misstep near one of her daggers being enough to pick up a kill on a careless opponent. And once she gets that kill, the game just feels totally lost. Even if she isn't getting kills in her own lane, it seems like Katarina roams always get kills, even pre-6. I don't know if people underestimate her damage or just play with pings off, but no one ever respects her roams. And when she's ahead, she's not that easy to shut down. Most people think it's as simple as saving CC to interrupt her ultimate, but a lot of Katarina's damage comes from jumping to her passive daggers. Like I said, Katarina is pretty much always my go-to ban. Whether she kills me or not, she just always seems to be the type of champion to get fed, and I don't know what to do when she gets the foot in the door. She just feels like my LP kryptonite. And that brings us to today's question of the day. What's your absolutely must-ban champion? Not every answer has to be backed by statistics and evidence. Sometimes it's just a mental block, or something your teammates always seem to feed. Regardless of your reasoning, be sure to let us know your answers down in the comments below. I'm really looking forward to this one. So, without further ado, let's get back to the video. Moving things down to the bot lane, a lot of ADCs sort of have the same role in every game. Even the bullies just sort of apply pressure. Most of the kills that happen are because of the influence the supports have in lane. But there is one ADC that can hard force kills by herself by jumping in at level 2. So when you're laning against that, you have to pray that your support can actually peel properly. So if you're stuck with a Janet player that just runs away when the enemy team even looks at you, then good luck. Another issue with Tristana being the enemy ADC is that if both supports roam up to the mid lane to make a play, you basically can't lane. Moving up against Tristana basically spells instant death, because she could jump in on you, fully sack a grenade, and then just jump again to follow up even if you flash away. If that chunk of damage isn't enough to finish you off, she has the not so balanced blast of damage from her ultimate to send you back to the fountain. On top of being a disgusting lane bully, she has insane scaling, with her range and mobility and self-peeling making her basically untouchable in late game fights. Now for our supports, we'll be starting things off once again with Lulu. As much as I like playing with the Lulu myself, I hate that anything in this game can be broken for so long. We've covered how broken she is basically every single patch for what feels like an eternity now, so I'll keep it kind of short and sweet. She has no weak points in the game. She goes from good early to an insane late game. Even against aggro support, she has the ability to neutralize the ADC's ability to follow up on the engage, and then the damage just to turn back the fight in her favor. Out of lane, she either turbo buffs a carry, speeds up a diver to engage fights, or she can fully shut down a fed enemy carry by polymorphing them. So, being so low risk, but so ultra high reward, there's really no reliable way to stop Lulu from having an insane impact on the game. So, if you main support, and for some reason you refuse to play her, you need to ban her out. Finishing off our list, we have Senna. Senna isn't particularly oppressive in the early game. In fact, her laning phase is pretty weak against all but the weakest lane combos in the bot lane. But the issue is her scaling. While Lulu is amazing at buffing up her carries, Senna becomes a carry herself. Basically, playing against Senna means that your game is on a timer. If the game goes on too long and Senna reaches those higher thresholds, it gets harder and harder to reach her in fights. And if the game really drags on and she just reaches 140 plus stacks, she'll basically be killing anybody before they can get to her. Most times, she'll just chunk out people from basically across the screen while you're not even trying to fight. This is especially a problem in the lower elos where players really struggle to close out a game. So if you're not super confident in your ability to both shut her down in lane and close the game out, she's definitely worth getting out of the game. And that wraps things up for our 10 most dangerous champions that need to be banned out on patch 11.13. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, be sure you sub so you never miss out on our meta guides and you're always in the loop on what the best picks are. Remember to let us know what your personal go-to ban is in the comments down below. And one last thing, don't forget to check out our Discord in the description as well, where you can enter our giveaway or just hang out and be a part of our community. Make sure you hit me up because I would love to chat with you guys. I can't wait to see you guys back in the next video, but until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.